You sentenced me to death. You need to keep that promise.
He can't die. He's our bridge home.
I mean, I personally knew ish, like let's say that. I knew like the general idea. I had a previous relationship with the showrunners, so I'd worked with them for a lot of years before this show, and so just kind of like offhanded, talking behind the scenes about the character and the show and the arc and all that kind of stuff. I had kind of been given like the general idea that Coach Ben would probably meet his ultimate demise sometime in season three. So I was a little prepared for it from the beginning. I will say, to our showrunners' credit, they kind of broke protocol a little bit this season when it came to alerting actors to their characters' deaths. You write about this industry, I'm sure you're aware. Like, typically the protocol is you don't really find out, until like an episode or two before, maybe, when you're filming that your character is dying. And there's, a whole myriad of reasons for that that have been kind of established over a lot of years, and I understand why. Like I said, to our showrunners' credit, they called everybody who was dying this season, myself included, of course, and gave them, months of heads up before we ever started filming the season, which I thought was really generous and really kind. As soon as I heard the news, which again, I kind of already suspected and knew that we were going in that direction, my immediate question was just like, tell me more, like how, that was always the most important thing to me. Like I knew that the character probably was not going to make it, but I just wanted it to be a cool death. I wanted it to be impactful. I wanted it to mean something. And as you know, and as people will soon find out, this is kind of an inflection point, I think, in the entire arc of the series. So as much as I'm an actor who wants to stay on a really amazing show and keep working on it, I'm also really happy that the way this is going down kind of leads to a whole lot of other things. Yeah, I mean, I think there were some surprising things about it. I think that I always had in my mind that Natalie was this is kind of how it had to go down. If he was actually going to be killed, I knew that it had to be Natalie. I didn't know exactly what the circumstances would be surrounding it. I also think that the big shock for me was just how kind of brutal it gets throughout this last episode. I mean, from like the forced feeding stuff to the kind of time jump that we do within the episode over the course of like many weeks or even months, where we're going from like summer all the way into fall, and just like the deterioration that we see of not just like physically but just psychologically as well. So how much they really went there, that part did surprise me a little bit. And as soon as I read it, I was like, whew, okay, this is not going to be a fun episode to film. But like I said, I think that it truly was a perfect ending to the character. I mean, this is something that needs to happen in order for the story to progress and the plot to progress. I also think that, this is the first time that they've really crossed the line. This is the inflection point where they, up until now, everything can kind of be explained away. This is our first move into what really would be categorized as murder, and like you said, by the end of the episode, the real jaw-dropping moment is, oh my God. And then as we see over the course of the next few episodes, you're like, yeah, okay, this had a domino effect. Like this led directly to all the stuff that we've been wondering about. I mean, look, I will say I'm not sure that we ever truly get a clear-cut answer on that. I think part of the intrigue of the season is that's always left open to the audience's interpretation a little bit, which personally I love, because at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter if he burned it down or not. Like what matters is the fact that these girls responded in such a way that ultimately ends up leading to a lot of really tragic shit. Like that's kind of what ultimately matters. I will say, from my perspective, I remember preparing for the season and kind of looking at the scripts I had and knowing what I did about the season. I spent a lot of time with an acting teacher that I work with, named Gregory Berger, who I just adore, and he and I started coming up with a lot of ideas about, is it strong enough to just say, did I or did I not burn down the cabin? And to me, that like I said, it never really mattered. It was never really a strong enough like motivator for me. And so we came up with some slightly deeper stuff that kind of like drove me in a certain direction. So I can say that in my mind, I actually think I did burn down the cabin. I do not, however, think that I did it to kill them. I do not think that I was trying to kill them. So, take that for what you will. But that was kind of the story that I was working with the whole time. I got to be honest, if I was a viewer, like the most obvious explanation to me is this is like a decades old wooden cabin in the middle of nowhere with like open flames literally all over the place, and everybody's just like falling asleep and there's like lit candles literally all over the place, a giant fireplace. I'm like, I have a feeling like it just happened, like accidents happen. There's flames everywhere. It's a wooden cabin, but the fact that they're so quick to jump to needing to blame somebody, I think just kind of speaks to like the psychological state that these girls are in. Oh, I think there's a lot more ahead. I mean, I think this was the first domino to fall. But yeah, there's a lot more ahead. And like I said, had this never happened, then you could probably justifiably say that all of the things that come after it never would have happened either. So I think regardless of what Natalie personally does going forward, I think there's a lot that weighs on her in the sense that like she kind of caused this ripple effect, right? She started this chain reaction. If she hadn't done what she did, maybe you could say that like none of the stuff that comes after it ever goes down. And so I think that's why the burden on her was so heavy, regardless of what she personally does going forward for these next several episodes. We see these people appear, and then pretty much right away, immediately afterwards, starting in the next episode, we see the knee-jerk reaction of the girls, right, to these new people kind of showing up unexpectedly. And like I said, that's what sets off the domino effect for really the rest of the series. I mean, people have been yearning, I think, if not begging, for some answers to some of these questions that we've been planting since the beginning of the show. How did they get out? How are they ultimately found? How are they rescued? Like, here's your answer. I love that. I also love the fact that we are getting some answers to what's going on in the woods, like what's going on in the forest. Is this a psychological thing? Is this actually a supernatural thing? Is there some sort of explanation? And like, we actually start to get those answers, which I just remember reading these couple of scripts in like episode 6 and 7 and 8 and just being like, oh, it's so good. And I'm like, did you have this from the beginning? Were they planning on this from the beginning? And I gotta say, these people know what they're doing, like our creators, our writers, they are not just like throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. They have had a plan. Obviously, as when it comes to television, like things can change. You have to pivot occasionally based on circumstances and situations. But like for the most part, this is the story they always plan to tell. And I'm just really excited that people are finally getting to see kind of that payoff.
Yeah.